Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pike's Place Hoops podcast. I'm Alec, he's Mike, and we're back for the first time in a little bit. Most of that was on my end with graduating school and all that, but I'm officially graduated Rutgers. Thank you, Mike, for the round of applause. Now we're back to talk some more Rutgers basketball. It's been a little bit, but I would say the excitement has only gone up since the last time we recorded in anticipation for the season.
Yeah, it's definitely been a fun off season, a fun build up. I think everyone kind of turned their calendars to November 2024, pretty much from like January 1st on, from like so once we knew that last year's team wasn't really going to make a run, they kind of gave us a little bit of a false hope in that four-game stretch, but once that subsided, I think everyone circled the calendar for November 4th, 5th, 6th, whenever that first game of the season was going to be. And luckily, we got our calendar out, so we know November 4th is going to be the first game of the season. And I can't wait. I got my season tickets. I know you covered a team, or will be covering the team. We'll have tickets, so it's going to be a fun season, and it's gonna be a packed rack. I feel like every game, whether it's Illinois or Wagner, is going to be just a mayhem.
Oh, absolutely. And it's going to be chocked to the brim with not just fans, but also NBA scouts too, as it looked like, as Adam Zagoria put out today for NJ Advanced Media, he said he was talking to a scout that said there's going to be scouts all over Jersey Mike's arena just because of the high level talent that's going to be in the gym this year.
Yeah, and for the first time in pretty much forever, I mean, I probably guess since Hamidi Injay, the scouts are actually going to be coming to watch our players. I remember back in, I couldn't tell you what year it was, maybe 2009. I think it was Rosario and Echenique's sophomore year, or maybe it was their freshman year. I don't remember. Uh, Marquette was playing Rutgers, and I had went to the concessions to get a pretzel. And the reason I'm telling you this story is it was the day Johan Petro got traded from, I think it was the Nuggets to the Nets or the Nets to the Nuggets. And sitting behind me was a Nuggets scout. So I said to him, "Oh, what did you think of the Johan Petro trade?" He looked at me like dumbfounded.
The what?
He's like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I don't know. I just went to go get a pretzel, and I saw on the ticker it said Johan Petro was traded to whichever direction he was going." So I broke the news to a scout. It was great. We talked about J.R. Smith, which was great. Earl Smith being from New Jersey, and this is me at like 15 years old. And then what happens? We ask him who he's there to scout, and he's there to scout Wesley Matthews and uh, Dominic James and Jeremy McNeil. Maybe I don't know if Jimmy Butler was on that team. I doubt it. Maybe, who knows? I don't remember. But um, yeah, he was there to watch Marquette players. So finally, I mean, I remember D'Angelo Russell played at the rack, and we had Allen Houston sitting, 10 seats to my right. But no one was ever there to watch Rutgers players. But this year, they're there to watch our guys, so it'll be a fun season.
It should. And we got our non-conference schedule. The Big Ten schedule has yet to be announced, at least while we're recording it. If I remember correctly, it usually gets announced around September, I want to say.
Yeah,
So
mid-September.
I'm sure we'll do something on that when that comes out. But for now, we have the non-conference schedule and we'll pull it up right here. Okay, so now we got our schedule up. As you can see, or if you're on if you're on audio only, you can hear. First game Wednesday, November 6th, they'll host Wagner, a team that actually made the NCAA tournament last year, but they lost Melvin Council Jr. among a couple of other guys, I would assume. But that's still a pretty tough team. So Wagner, it's a good game to start out with at least. A game that you should win, especially with the talent on this team, but also not one where it's like a complete tomato can.
Yeah, and I think Michael, I know people knock every coach that doesn't coach a blue blood pretty much for their scheduling. I think Michael did a good job, and this is kind of something that I know I brought up when people would talk about it. We didn't need to overhaul our schedule or how we were scheduling teams, but I felt like we shouldn't be playing Boston University and LIU Brooklyn and teams that are ranked 350 in Ken Palm. Play the teams that are ranked 212. Play the teams that are ranked 195. Play the teams that are ranked 225. It's 120 spots up. It at least gives you some sort of competition, and you're still going to win the games, but it doesn't like sink your out of conference schedule because you're playing three of the worst teams in college basketball. Does that mean Wagner, St. Peter's, or Monmouth or Kennesaw State's any good? No, but the metrics are going to like it a little bit better. And when you're Rutgers, who doesn't have the wiggle room to, just schedule a bloodbath and then go 28 and or 24 and 8 and make it to the tourney as a 4 seed. Like this is what you got to do. You got to play the numbers game. So I like what they did. Um, and Wagner, I'm praying for good weather. I'm going to be in Florida. Um, I'm actually that schedule is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I was under the impression the game was November 4th.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I thought it might have been at first, and whether they would have had a different they would have had a game on the Monday because last year they opened the season against Princeton on a Monday, but I guess they're waiting until Wednesday to start the season this time.
okay. Well, that changes a lot of things because I was going to fly home on the 4th to make the game, and now I got an extra 2 days. All
Well,
right.
that's good.
Well, thank you for telling me that because I was totally confused. That being said, yeah, Wagner, November 6th. I have the calendar circled. I'm sure you do as well.
Oh yeah. So next up, we got St. Peter's on that following Monday, November 11th. These two teams played each other last year. Rutgers kind of blew them out. St. Peter's really struggled to shoot from the floor. Probably going to see some similar things as last year's this year.
Yeah, I mean, St. Peter's had a magical run a couple years ago, but otherwise, this is, it's just come get spanked by Rutgers night for them. Monmouth, I've always liked the Monmouth matchup. My mom went to Monmouth. I live here, 15 minutes, 20 minutes from the campus. I think the last time we played Monmouth was in West Long Branch.
It might have
It was
been.
a game we lost too,
Yeah,
which
I
was
think
brutal.
I think
But
they
that was
also
during,
played. Yeah, I think they also played at Rutgers when Justin Robinson was there, and they almost made the NCAA tournament.
yeah. Monmouth, is King Rice still there?
He is, yeah, and that's going to be a really intriguing matchup because I got to work a lot of the Jersey Shore Basketball League games, and there's a ton of Monmouth guys, past and present, that play in that league. So guys like Jack Collins and Abdi Bashir as well. Xander Rice just graduated; he's not there anymore, but a lot of those guys, I think it could be an intriguing matchup just to see where these two programs are at. And yeah, I agree. I've been waiting for this rivalry, quote unquote rivalry, to start back up again because I mean it just seems like a fun brand of basketball that these two teams can play up against each other.
Yeah, and I think Monmouth has a guy. I think he's a guy circled as a potential like transfer candidate next year. I don't remember his name, but he popped up on a draft board, and I was like, "That's weird. I don't remember who this is." You might know who I'm talking about. He
But
was a
that
freshman, like a 6'8" forward they have.
that's probably Abdi Bashir.
Yeah, it's probably that guy.
He's one of those guys where he is skinny, he's tall, and he has a really high release point, but he also shoots like a guard, so he can just shoot over people and do it well. He's not a great defender. That's like his main weakness is his defense. So I'm sure they'll put someone like Ace or Dillon just relentlessly attack him off the dribble.
Yeah. I'm just double checking that that's who I was thinking of. I mean, he was the only freshman I saw. Yeah, I don't think it was this Nikita guy because I think that guy transferred out already.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
he's at
Oh,
Notre Dame
or
now, the
no,
big
I think
man.
it's Jared Valencia.
Jared Valencia. Okay. He was actually in the Jersey Shore Basketball League too. He played in one game, but yeah, from what I saw, he was pretty good too. But yeah, this Maryland team, it's very solid. They've been solid year in, year out. And I have a feeling that if they want to make an NCAA tournament under King Rice, I think this is the year to do it.
Yeah. And then after that, we got the Jordan, no, yeah, Jordan Durkak revenge game against Merrimack. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, Merrimack
On
had
the
us
ropes.
against the ropes. That vaunted Syracuse like 2-3 defense.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the game. That's probably gonna be the first game. Not that Merrimack's any world beater type team, but that's gonna be the first game where you will get to see what kind of team Rutgers is. Because assuming that's the same coach and the same philosophy that they play under, we're going to be able to see like, all right, can this team beat a zone? Or is this team going to sleepwalk because they can't hit threes? They got nobody in the middle, they got no spacing, and yeah, they might end up winning the game by 15 points, but it's one of those games where it's like 6, 8, 10, 12. All right, they won by 15, not like they're up by 25 and then they took their foot off the gas. That's what we're hoping for. I mean, you're hoping for a 30-point win, but that's going to be a telltale sign that game. And then it's followed up by another big game for them at Kennesaw State. The Ace Bailey, Jermichael Davis, I guess, return game. Even though I'm confused why they didn't try to schedule Chattanooga instead. I mean, I guess maybe Chattanooga's a little better and there's a risk of losing that game, but I was surprised they're playing Kennesaw State at Kennesaw State. That's going to be a weird game, and I wonder if that's going to be a TV game. Like, are we going to be able to watch that, or am I going to have to tune in to Jerry Recco?
I feel like it might be an ESPN Plus game, but I feel like with the caliber of opponent, maybe they put it on like ESPNU or something like that. I would hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting game, and I'm surprised that I first off, I get that scheduling is a two-way street. You know, one team wants to play, obviously the other team has to agree. I'm surprised that they're actually playing this game at Kennesaw State. I believe their gym only holds like 3,000 people, four
yeah.
thousand, and also that they couldn't find a better Georgia team to go on the road or Atlanta area team. I guess if they just wanted to get another game where they can kind of get their legs under them to start, because after this Kennesaw State game, the schedule really turns up. I guess they just want to get a game where they can have a beatable opponent while also bringing back Jermichael Davis and Ace Bailey home. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be really interesting to see how they play that game because it's on the road against a lower tier opponent, which you don't see that often, especially this much of a gap in talent level. And like Kennesaw State, they weren't very good last year, and I don't know if they're going to be much better this year after they lost their coach to South Florida. So I guess we'll see how they come out into this game. I think it's going to be really interesting to see just how they look, and especially as we kind of look into this next few games, this is where the schedule is at its finest. You got the Players Era tournament. Um, you notice that November 24th, a Sunday, is when they play Kennesaw State, and then Tuesday, November 26th, is when they play their first Players Era game in Las Vegas. So that is a quick turnaround, and if you're playing one of Houston or Alabama, or even if you're playing Notre Dame, that's not an easy turnaround to have just one day off before you have to go play again.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say like, question that and why they did that. I'm not so worried, especially because I think we're playing Notre Dame first, and not to take a shot at Notre Dame, but they're clearly of the three teams they're going to play the most beatable of those three. I think it's the next two games that like if we lose to Alabama and Houston, no, we're probably going to lose to Alabama and Houston. They're two of the top five teams in the country. But if we get blown out by Alabama or Houston, that's where I could sit there and be like, hey, we had to play 3 games in 5 days. But playing, Kennesaw State is, and that's probably why they're playing Kennesaw State when they are is, listen, you don't want to go play Georgia. Maybe you could beat Georgia, but you don't want to go in a physical, SEC game and then go play Notre Dame and then go play Alabama and then go. So I think it's fine. I mean, these are young guys for the most part. Most of these guys are freshmen, sophomore, couple, upperclassmen, obviously. These aren't NBA players where they're 29 years old, slower to recover. They'll be fine. These guys play AAU ball or they play 2 games a day. I'm not worried about that. It'll be fun to see the Cliff game. If there's any team that can beat that knows how to defend Cliff and knows how to score on Cliff and take advantage of Cliff, it's Rutgers. And can they use that to beat Alabama? Alabama has a lot more than Cliff. But if you could take advantage of Cliff, it could open a lot of things up. You get him in foul trouble, or if I was defending them, let Cliff shoot because we know he can't score effectively. Their most ineffective offense is give the ball to Cliff. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And then Houston, I mean, Kelvin Sampson just is a machine down there. So maybe we get maybe we get revenge on the NCAA tournament. Maybe we get revenge on Cliff. If we go 2-1 in Vegas, I'd be ecstatic. And are you going to Vegas or are you staying home?
We'll see. I'm trying to
I'm
figure out a way
I'm
to make it happen.
I have a wedding on Wednesday. I believe that's the 27th. That up in the air. Do I go to Vegas? Do I go to the wedding? Do I go to Vegas? Do I go to the wedding? Um my buddy who's in the wedding was like, "Well, can I swing it?" But I was like, I mean, my buddy who's getting married, not in the wedding, is, can I swing going to the game and then going home? But I was like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it'll be fun. It's a Again, hopefully, I'm assuming this will be on TV. So if I don't go, at least it'll be interesting. I'm hoping for a 2-1 break there, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think 2-1 would be obviously 3-0 is the best case scenario, but I think you're satisfied if you come out of that 2-1, even 1-2 with two like close down to the wire games that you get on the wrong side of wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And it's also the storylines too, like you talked about, the revenge game against Cliff in Alabama. And then the other two games are the last two NCAA tournament opponents that you faced that you lost to. And then you can also factor in, just the way that, the schedule is turned out, just the way that they're playing back to back to back days, see how that works out.
They get
Yeah,
Thanksgiving off though.
that's true. Yeah, okay, yeah, so it is 3 games in 4 days. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah, they play on Black Friday instead of Thursday. Well, that's good. They get the Thanksgiving day off. Yeah, I'm gonna really try to key in on Alabama and see what they do with Cliff, and see how much they use him on offense, because on defense, it's obvious he's gonna be that guy down low at the rim that can really protect the rim, and something that Nate Oates hasn't really had at Alabama in his time there. But I'm more curious to see how they use him on offense, because they'll be playing next to Grant Nelson in the front court, who's kind of one of those do-it-all forwards that can even play on the outside too. And then, of course, they brought back Mark Sears. Their guard room is unbelievably stacked, probably the best in the country. So I'm curious to see how they attack that.
Yeah, it must be nice to be Nate Oates right now.
Exactly.
You got like
Uh,
12 deep of six guys that could be all Americans.
yeah. And
And
once again, after the players era, it doesn't get very much easier. Though you can, according to the schedule, there is about 2 weeks off. But you can assume that there will be at least one, I think, two Big Ten conference games scheduled in there, because that's what the conference does. In that first week of December, they always have a couple games in the early slate. But after those games, then you have Seton Hall at Jersey Mike's Arena, and I know Seton Hall, Rutgers probably has the talent advantage over Seton Hall this year. But I say this for all the rivalries. When it comes to those in-state rivalries, you can throw out season vibes, talent, all that stuff. You can throw it out the window, because nobody truly knows what's going to happen with those emotional in-state rivalry games that happen every year.
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we shouldn't have beat Seton Hall last year, and we pretty much dominated them from the tip. Shout out to Gavin Griffiths, who played the game of his life that day and then did nothing the rest of the season. But it's this 6 game, am I doing that math right? 7 game stretch here that we're seeing, three in Vegas. The two like invisible Big Ten home game or Big Ten games, Seton Hall and Princeton. It's those 7 games right there that's going to decide your season. Um, if you go 1-2 in Vegas, fine. If you go 1-2 in Vegas, you got to beat Seton Hall and Princeton, and then you got to split the Big Ten games. So if you go 4-3 in that 7 game stretch, you're good. If you go 3-4 in that 7 game stretch, you're okay. If you go 2-5 or 1-6, you dug yourself a hole. So those 7 games right there, yeah, like I said, you got to be if you're gonna lose two in Vegas, you got to beat Seton Hall and Princeton. It's the only way to make up for it. Um, and it's frightening because, or not to say your season could be over before Christmas, but if you go 1-6 in those 7 games, your season could be over before Christmas.
Yeah, and that's before the Big Ten slate even starts. And yeah, so we'll see. Probably 2 games based on the 2 week long gap
Yeah, it's
between.
usually two. It's usually a
I
home and
think, yeah,
away.
yeah,
Now,
that's
and
what I
maybe we get
assumed.
lucky and we get Nebraska, or not Nebraska, Minnesota, or like Washington or something, one of these like easy teams because we always get like Purdue and who we beat, but Purdue and Illinois or something.
Last year was Illinois. Yeah, it's never easy. So
It's
yeah,
always been Illinois or Purdue, like
yeah,
every time.
or Michigan State.
Yeah, well, Izzo's afraid to come here, so
Exactly. Yeah, so like you mentioned, a week after that, on December 21st, they go back to the Prudential Center and play against Princeton in the Zach Martini revenge game. So that's going to be an interesting one to look at. They are without Martini and Matt Alaco, who transferred to Ohio State. And then they do still have Xavier Lee, who I think is one of the best guards in the Ivy League. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. And I'm kind of glad that they have this matchup later on in the non-conference slate as opposed to game one last year. I didn't love that decision. And again, scheduling is a two-way street, so it may not have worked out either way if they tried to, bump it back to later in the slate. But having that, that ready team, that team that is bringing back all of its guys and is completely ready, and a systematic team the way Princeton is under Mitch Henderson. Game one against a team that was still trying to kind of find its role, and each player trying to find its role. I didn't think was the best recipe for success, but they bumped it back this time. I'm interested to see how this game goes. Again, it's going to be at the Rock. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of Rutgers fans there. Um, we don't even have to get into the Jersey Gym last year where there was not many people there because it took hours to get into the arena. But I think this is a really good matchup just to not close out the non-conference slate, but send it off on a winnable note, but not an easy one by any stretch.
yeah. Who do you think Rich Kent's going to be rooting for in this game?
That's tough. I really don't know. I want to say Princeton because he recently came out with a book about Ivy League basketball, so he's probably going to be really trying to get Xavier Lee to go off in that game, but we'll see.
I feel like it was an outer body experience when I was at the rack last year. I saw a circle of guys talking. It was Chris Carlin, Rich Kent, Brian Kelly, BK in 118, and somebody else. I want to say like I want to say like Jerry Carino, but I don't think it was Jerry Carino. It was like four big figures. I'm like, damn, this is like a brain trust of Rutgers basketball. I think that having Zach Martini will help us a lot in that game because he knows the offense, he knows a lot of the players on Princeton. So we should play it better than we did last year, and I think we're gonna have more of a talent gap this year. So hopefully, hopefully we come away with a win there. And then, like you said, we get another Ivy League team in Columbia. This must make Richard Kent very happy that we play two December Ivy League games.
And this is also the Dan Vesey revenge game too. He transferred there after spending a year at Rutgers as a walk-on. He played in the Jersey Shore Basketball League too. He looked pretty good. I mean, before he came to Rutgers, he was, I believe, committed to Army, and then he decided to come to Rutgers and was a walk-on for a season. Now he has a year of college basketball under his belt. Didn't play a lot, but has the strength training and the preparation. Now he's at Columbia, so hey, maybe he plays a big role in that game.
Yep. Well, and then every Rutgers, if he does, every Rutgers fan will be asking to bring him back on scholarship because you know that's what they do with walk-ons.
Of course. So that is the Rutgers basketball non-conference schedule. I think coming out of that schedule, 8-3 or 7-4 is the ideal scenario. Obviously, anything better is obviously better, but I think that's where Rutgers fans should aim to want to be by the time the calendar flips to 2025.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, I feel like we're missing a big. I feel like we're missing a game, but could be wrong. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. No, 11 and 20. Never mind. We're good. I
Yeah,
thought there
so
was one
that's
more like one more like, you know, crap opponent we're gonna play, but they're not. We're good. We have 11. And it's funny. It says here, if you look at it, it says conference action begins, yada, yada, yada. Rutgers conference opponents have been already announced as the Scarlet Knights will host Michigan, Penn State, Purdue, 3. Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota 6, Michigan State, UCLA, USC 9, Wisconsin at home. Wait, hold on. Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Are we not playing an MSG game?
um I guess that would probably factor into I hate to say it, but that might be one of the home games if I
Okay.
had to guess. I mean, I know there's been rumors of either Michigan State again or UCLA. I don't think any of that's been like secured yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the home games if I had to guess.
Yeah.
At the very least, like I just want some consistency in how they factor that in because you can't call it a neutral site game and then once the game happens, you retroactively call it a home game. I just want some consistency is all because that was kind of a sticking point in Rutgers' resume last year or not last year, 2 years ago when they barely missed the NCAA tournament where they lost. I believe it was a quad. I believe it was a quad one win because it was on a neutral court against Michigan State. So I just want, if you're going to make it a home game, make it a home game the whole way through. If you're going to make it a neutral site game, make it a neutral site game the whole way through. Just be consistent. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
So that is the Rutgers non-conference schedule. So it should be interesting to see how they fare in that non-conference slate. Next up, there were some interesting reactions to the non-conference schedule. I know we kind of got into that a little bit when we were first looking over it. It's not, here's the thing. It's not that bad compared to a lot of high majors, especially I'm looking at you, Big 12. And it's also not as weak as Rutgers has played in the past. And that's what a lot of people aren't really understanding.
Well, the Big 12 every year has done the same thing with their non-conference schedule. Every one of those teams, like Iowa State is probably the worst at it. They play Northwest Missouri State, they play you know, College of Biblical Studies, they play Incarnate Word, they play Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They play all those, you know, slapdick teams as a Blake Snell would say, beat them you know, 97 to 62, and then their net is like 12.
And then
And
the
it's
entire
like,
Big, yeah, then the entire Big 12 does that. So all of their nets are inflated. And then when they play each other, the nets still stay high because you're beating these good teams according to the net.
yeah, and you
And
don't when you lose to each other, it's like it's a computer game. It's a numbers game. I mean, then every team can do it. Let's play let's play Montana State. I think Montana State was halfway decent, but yeah, here you
yeah,
go. Mississippi Valley State, Kansas City, IUPUI, or whatever that is. Like, all right, you go to Maui, Jackson State, Iowa. You can't get away from that game. Omaha. Like, I mean, look at this. But then I thought about it, right? Is it just that is it that they are purposely doing this? Or is it just middle America has such shit low major teams?
it's hard to say because it definitely feels like there's just a lot of them because that Midwest region is so big. There's so many different schools that play D1. But I definitely think it's part of where they have figured out the formula in the net that if you beat up on these really bad teams, then it makes your net look really good, and everyone's kind of caught on to that. I think
Yeah, but
that's
I'm saying for Rutgers, right? If you go out of conference locally, outside of playing the NEC, all the Ivy League schools are not terrible. All the Patriot League schools are not terrible. And all the like you're not going to play an A10 team because they don't want to play you because like they've whatever. And then like the MAC is not terrible, and that's like all your local conferences that aren't the Big Ten or whatever. But when you go out there, it's like the OVC, the MVC, the Big Sky, the Big West, all those with teams that nobody ever talks about and that has nobody on them. And part of me feels like yes, they're gaming the schedule, and the other part of me feels like they're not going to go play. They're not going to pay Monmouth, and Monmouth's not going to pay to go fly to Iowa. Or they're not going to play. Um, what's another decent school like Delaware, and Delaware's not going to go fly to uh, Lubbock, Texas. So it's kind of just the situation of geography,
Yeah,
which
I didn't think about that before actually. I definitely think that definitely plays at least a little bit of a role. But yeah, I mean, you know what? The reactions to the schedule don't matter. All that matters is the teams that are in front of you, and we're all excited to watch Rutgers play against these teams. So I think they'll do pretty well. I think once again going 8-3 is a ideal point that you can go in the non-conference schedule. So yeah, I think it's a good schedule, especially with the talent that's coming in. You got some really good games, so not too much complaining from me that you'll find.
yeah.
Uh,
Um, no, I agree with you. I think they did fine.
yeah. So next up, we got some of the big new transfer names. I don't know how many we actually talked about when they did come in. So we can just kind of go through some of them. Because yeah, again, I don't think we actually covered them when they actually did commit. We haven't recorded in a little bit, but we can take a look at the 2024-25 roster. A lot of new faces, like we said before, only three guys are coming back, and then you add in the all the freshmen as well. So in terms of transfers, we got Jordan Durkak from Merrimack, like we were talking about before, native of Colonia, went to Colonia High School, and you got Jermichael Davis, one of the returners, and then obviously Dylan and Ace are the two-star freshmen. Tyson Acuff, a senior guard from Detroit, Michigan, formerly at Eastern Michigan, was eighth in the country in scoring.
Wait,
And then
hold
you
on.
got a
Go to
couple of
go to Tyson real quick.
his
Why
player page.
why does he have a dollar sign next to his name?
That's I'm assuming that's NIL. Yeah, that's his open doors profile for NIL opportunities.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny that only he has it.
It looks like, yeah, that is interesting. I didn't realize that. Maybe Eastern Michigan had that already for him. But either way, next up you got Bryce Dortch and Dylan Grant, another two freshmen. Nate Freisler, one of the freshman walk-ons from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He's one of the bigs. Emmanuel Ogbole, one of the other returners, the junior center. PJ Hayes, the sharpshooting wing transfer from San Diego, formerly at Black Hills State as well, and in the D2 ranks. So I'm very excited to see him because of just how highly touted he is as a shooter. I think he's got good size to be a sharpshooter too.
I didn't two things. I didn't realize PJ Hayes the fourth. Um, I thought PJ might have been like Peter Jr. That being said, can you go up real quick to the ginger from Michigan? I think it's a ginger. this guy, Nate Freisler. Uh, he sat behind me at a game last year. We talked. I remember the guy behind me talked to him, and he looked at me. He's like, "Oh, he's a kid from Ann Arbor, like walk on." I was like, "Okay, no, whatever. Who cares? Like, whatever." And it ends up, I didn't actually know he was coming here. I just thought it was like a walk on visiting, like a preferred walk on kind of thing. So yeah, I didn't talk to him at all, but he did sit behind me. Can you keep going real quick? Some of these though, like some of the like Lathan, I don't think Lathan's 6'10", 275.
Yeah, it's always tough to see how many of these are actually accurate. Yeah, Somerville, one of the freshmen. Jeremiah Limbs, the third returnee, coming in from Temple and Iowa State. And then we got two other walk-ons. We're replacing all three walk-ons. Peter Noble from Middletown played at CBA, and then Max Fradkin from Southbury, Connecticut. So, a few freshmen in the walk-on ranks. And then the last one, number 99 as well, Zach Martini coming in
Oh, he's got the
from
dollar sign
Princeton.
too.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess Rutgers doesn't have that yet with the open doors, directly linking it to some of the transfers. I don't know. But yeah, either way, I think this is a pretty good transfer portal class, especially given the talent that they have coming in as freshmen. I think they needed a lot of supplementary pieces. I didn't think they needed to go out and get one of the big fish, maybe minus the center position, but we can talk about that as well. I thought the transfer portal class that they did bring in of Hayes, Acuff, Durkak, Martini. I think that's a really good class to kind of support a lot of the freshmen coming in because these are veterans.
Yeah, I mean Martini and Hayes, obviously two sharpshooters. I think they're gonna fit their roles perfectly. Martini's such a smart player, such a come from Princeton, takes good shots, doesn't plays within his means. Hayes, absolute sharpshooter, kind of like a Cam Spencer light in a way, but maybe not because Cam Spencer could do a lot more on the ball stuff than I've seen Hayes doing. But I agree with you. They didn't need to go out and get another playmaker or another focal point. Would it have been nice to get an Amari Williams or an Andrew Carr or what one of the other centers that Kentucky got because they got like six of them? Would have been nice to get an Aaron Bradshaw maybe. Like I don't know. Um, but again, it was what do you believe in Somerville? Will he be ready by December to be, more of a focal point, or is Ogboli going to take a massive step forward? Hopefully, one of those two come true. If not, it can get a little dicey. But I agree with you. They didn't need to go out and get a lead guard. They had Jeremiah Williams. They had Dylan Harper. They didn't need to go out and get you know, they didn't have to go out and get a guard other than like a guy. They got a cuff and they got Durkak, but those guys can play the two, play the three a little bit. So I'm fine with what they got. I know there's some people online that don't like a cuff, don't like Durkak because they're not 35, 40% shooters and they're not the most, analytical darlings over here. Listen, you took guys that had to do everything in their offense, and now you're telling them to do a different role, a role that hopefully they'll succeed in. Does that mean Acuff's gonna turn into Ray Allen or Durkak's gonna turn into Jason Capono? No, but they're good players. They're guys that could contribute. They're guys that are gonna make a difference when they're on the court. So I'm happy with the guys they brought in. I'm sure one of these kids is gonna be a letdown, right? Look at Noah Fernandez last year. Like we thought he was gonna open up so many things, and it just didn't work out. It happens, but with the situation we had and with the money we have available, I thought they did great on the transfer class, just like you said.
Yeah, and another look at some of these guys. I mean, a lot of the times when you get guys out of the transfer portal to fill some of these holes, you get, a 1 year guy in his last year of college. But looking at Durkak, he's a multi-year guy, so he'll be back for the next year as well. And the 2025 recruiting class hasn't gotten off to the best start. They've struck out on a couple of their targets, but having Durkak there as a veteran, especially when everyone else is getting a lot of these transfers that are only available for a year, I think was pretty big too.
And he has a younger brother.
That's true. And he's been flying up the recruiting circles as well. He's gotten a bunch of high major offers in the past couple months too, and including Rutgers too. So that would be just having him around, I'm sure is a even though they won't play together, just having them around, I'm sure is a big boost.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Um,
think he's like ESPN has him the highest. He's like 45 on ESPN.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, we were talking about Somerville and Ogbole and how they will fare, as well as some of the bigs, as Rutgers didn't get a transfer big in the portal. That kind of brings us to our next point of a new coach back on the coaching staff. Jay Young has returned to Rutgers after, I believe, 4 years as the head coach at Fairfield. He resigned before last season, but now he's back as an assistant coach at Rutgers. He's been with Pikel forever. He knows how to coach big men and rebounding. The one that's always been pointed to and has been since he got rehired, Miles Johnson, the development that he took. I mean, what's your take on Jay Young coming back?
I mean, it's fine. It's one of those things I don't have a problem with it. I would have, if there was an open staff spot, I'd much rather have taken a kid like a guy like Brett McConnell from Princeton. Again, I don't think they probably didn't talk to him. It probably wasn't offered. It was probably some backdoor deal that was already done. So there's nothing against Jay Young. He's an excellent defensive coach. He's an excellent big man coach. I'm more new school. I'd rather go get a hot shot recruiter, a guy that coaches up sick offensive plays and sets, and look at the UConn. They have Luke Murray and the other guy Bamani or something, Kamani Jones. I forget his name. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
Kamani Young. Yeah.
Kamani Young. There you go. Like Luke Murray's offense is like the whole is revolutionizing college. I'd rather get a guy like that. Like obviously Luke Murray's not leaving UConn to come to Rutgers, but I'm saying you could find another Luke Murray out there somewhere. But Pike trusts his guys. Pike trusts who's close to him. So I can't blame him for bringing a guy back. It just sometimes you gotta. Here's the box that Pike likes to be in. Sometimes you gotta go outside the box to really turn up the results. But it is what it is.
I guess we'll never know what's going to happen with Brett McConnell until he eventually does leave Princeton, whether that's going to be to a high major assistant coaching role or his own program. I personally think he's waiting for his own shot as a head coach in like a good stable spot, but I guess we'll see. But I would love to have him here, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm interested to see how big of a jump Emmanuel Ogbole takes because Jay Young is back, so having that good big man coach definitely helps. I don't know how much that swings it considering he just got hired in August and Ogbole has been here since last August. And as well as this is his first real healthy offseason since he was recovering from the ACL last year, so. I'm wondering how big of a step his development takes coming into this year.
See, I'm in the my line of thinking on development and stuff. I think a lot of people have it wrong. Now, that's not to say Agboli can't go from here, let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a 3.5 last year. I think that's fair. I mean, we saw him for 10 games, and he didn't really do much outside of a couple plays here and there. That's not to say he can't go from a 3.5 to a 6 or a 5. And if he's a 5 or a 6, I think we take it and run, right? But I don't think not having a full off season, I don't think bringing in Jay Young, 2 months, 3 months before the season is going to change that much for him. The player is who he's been for 21 years of his life, for 20 years of his life. Can he work on his hands? Sure. Can he get more comfortable in the paint? Sure. Can he work on some footwork things? Sure. But I don't think we're going to see a jump from here to, a massive jump. Um, it's not like he showed flashes of it as like the point I'm getting at is usually guys when it comes to development you show flashes and then you get more minutes you get more opportunity and your stats go from 4 points and 6 rebounds on 56% shooting to 12 points and 8 rebounds on 59% shooting like you know what I'm saying like the shooting goes up a little bit, but the minutes and the usage go up, and that's where you get like, oh, this guy has 21 points a game kind of thing. I don't see Ogbole getting more than if Ogbole gives us 5 points and 8 rebounds a night, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I don't
And that's all I'm hoping for.
I don't disagree with you there. And I also don't think they need Agbole to be that force in the paint like Cliff Amore and like Miles Johnson were because of the talent that they'll have on the wings and at the guard spots and just kind of where college basketball is going from here. I think the Big Ten, as many have said, they're still kind of stuck in the dinosaur era, quote unquote. And I think Rutgers has a chance to kind of lead that revolution. Although Penn State tried it, but then Micah Shrewsbury left for Notre Dame. That team was kind of a look into what a Big Ten in the future of basketball can look like, even though we only saw it for a year. And it was pretty scary the way that they were able to play in that one season. So I think they don't I don't think they're going to get elite production or Cliff Amore like production from Emmanuel Ogbole, but they don't necessarily need it either. And when Lathan Somerville kind of starts to take over, which I think he will eventually, I don't think they're going to need that from him either. They just need them to be solid and not be, detrimental on either end of the floor.
Yeah, and I also hate the argument of, oh, he's got 5 fouls to give. No, you don't send guys out there to just foul out. You send guys out there to be productive. You send guys out there to at least play defense. I think he'll play defense. I think he'll rebound. If he does what we wanted Cliff to do the last 2 years of his career at Rutgers, we'll be happy. And that's not demand the ball on offense and just play defense and rebound. If he does that, everyone will be happy. He's so big and so athletic, he will get to put back rebound dunks a game or put back layup. He'll get one post up hook shot over a smaller defender every game. And he'll get a rebound or two, and he'll get a fast break play where something weird thing happens and he's ahead of the pack. Like he'll get his 6 points or 8 points a game, but don't post him up. Tell him to stand somewhere that he's not in the way, and we'll be fine. Clear the path for Ace and Dylan, and you'll be fine.
Yes,
Um,
so
so I think that'll help Rutgers overall on offense in terms of their efficiency, where you don't have the guy calling for the ball and they're dumping it in the ball. He's going to come set a screen for Dylan. He's going to roll. If it's open, great, he gets it. If not, Dylan's going to go to the basket. He's going to come set a screen for Ace. He'll roll. If it's open, he'll get a dunk. If not, he's getting out of the way. Like, but it's not. He's not. If he demands the rock, I will run out onto the court myself and yell at him, or I'll
I
tap him on the
yeah.
shoulder when he sits down in front of me and say, "Don't ask for the ball ever again. You can't do that." But uh, no, I'm not losing this season because of Emmanuel Ogbole.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So it should be an interesting, I guess, overall vibe to how this team kind of gels on offense. Before we wrap it up, any last points that you wanted to hit on?
Yeah, Ace Bailey's better than Cooper Flag,
I mean, you got no argument from me. I guess
and I'm hoping
time.
one of these two ends up in Brooklyn. That the
Oh,
trade
that would
Sean
be
Marks made that dream a reality. Now I'm just hoping we don't get the first pick in the draft.
honestly, I would be okay with any of the guys. Obviously, I would want either Dylan or Ace, but I'd be okay with any of the guys in the top five, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean I'm fine with any of the top six between Flag, Bailey, Harper, Edgecombe, Traore, and Malawak. Any of those six. I mean, as a Nets fan, it's great because like we're gonna end up with like pick two or pick three or pick four, and we'll probably get Dylan or Ace, which will be great. And then
Hmm.
if we don't, we get Edgecombe, whatever, or Traore, whatever.
It's funny. I was actually talking to J.R. Smith at the Jersey Shore Basketball League when he played for with his brother Chris, who also is a very good basketball player in his own right. He's been playing in Israel professionally for years. He's become really good out there. And I told him I was a fan of the team across the river, and I said how happy I was that they finally control their own future. He was like, "Yeah, it's about time."
Yeah. Well, we haven't had our own draft pick since we moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Um, but what do you call it? What I think is, yeah, we're gonna there's like a 60% chance we end up with one of Ace or Dylan. Let's be honest. Like, I mean, and if we end up with Cooper Flag, all right, that's a good consolation prize.
Yeah,
Um, but after that, like the projected other three picks that we have are like 23, 28, and 29. One of those three teams is not going to be as good as people think. And and then we're going to trade up. So it's going to be a fun draft next year.
it should.
My dog wanted to join the podcast.
Oh, so yeah, in addition to some Rutgers basketball talk, you even got some Brooklyn Nets draft talk. So yeah, I anything else besides that?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, the return episode of the Plagues Plays Hoops podcast from Mike and Alec. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and also subscribe or anywhere you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. We're definitely going to be more frequent in these episodes as the season gets close, and even during the season, as Mike's dog is for our audio listeners, Mike's dog is now in frame. What's the name?
Cooper.
Oh,
We did
Cooper.
not name him after Flag.
Well, it might be manifesting the number one pick for the Brooklyn Nets. Well, for Cooper, Mike, and Alec, this has been another episode of the Pikes Place Hoops podcast. And thank you guys for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.